We've broken down for you what's really on Pakistan's shopping list. As expected, of course, they've run to their two allies, Turkey and China. But let's discuss what this really means for India. I've got with me in the studios, as I informed you earlier, Gaurav Sawant and Sandeep Unithan with me in this edition of NewsTrack. Gaurav, I'd like to begin with you. You gave us, of course, a series of reports just last week from the international border, from other locations, where you also showed us the kind of arms that were used by Pakistan, some of the drones that were used by Pakistan, many of which were Turkish, Gaurav.
And they were found to be wanting. That is what officers on ground told me. We saw the debris of some of these Yeeha drones. We saw debris of some other drones. They were found to be, and we have army officers on record on camera saying they were substandard, subpar. They were able to spoof them. Of course, India has the ability of both soft kill and hard kill. Soft kill was where our engineers would be able to spoof their drones so that they would no longer take commands from their Pakistani handlers and drone operators. And then hard kill would be those Zu-23 and the L-70 guns, shooting them down. So you wouldn't spend a lot of money on missiles to shoot them down. You would just shoot them down. Often, in some instances, using sniper rifles, even they were used to shoot down some of the Pakistani drones that came in. So Pakistan now, we are told, we're looking at some of the lists that they've gone to Turkey with and to China. They want to build a brigade plus of drones because swarm drone attacks is what they're looking at even in future. And they want better quality drones. They want longer range drones that can carry heavier payload. Some of the Yeeha drones that they had could carry about 10 kilograms of explosives, fragmented explosives. Now they want longer duration, longer range drones to be able to come in deeper with systems that would not be spoofed easily by India's air defense system. So they are now trying to stay a step ahead for the next battle.
Okay, Sandeep, looking at the list really of Pakistan's wish list, if you will, of arms from Turkey and China, is there reason for India also to be worried here and to kind of ramp up our procurement?
Well, I think India will be doing what India has to do, which is to build up our defense capabilities. And we've done that steadily, irrespective of what Pakistan has been doing. And I think the Operation Sidnoor was a vindication of the several years of indigenous defense efforts that we've done, and the proof of very, very breakthrough indigenous solutions like the BrahMos equipped with the Sukhoi 30 MKI. That's an entirely indigenous solution, which the DRDO came up in collaboration with the Indian Air Force. So it will be solutions like this that India will primarily be looking at. There are other very critical technologies, very critical capabilities that India has developed, which are among the first in the world. We are one of only 4 other countries in the world to have tested hypersonic missiles, and that happened in November of 2024. Of course, India will look at accelerating the induction of that DRDO-tested long-range anti-ship hypersonic missile. That it has Air Force and an Army variant as well. Those would be something that we would be looking at inducting, but primarily replenishing a lot of the ordnance that we've expended through Operation Sidnoor, and of course identifying the loopholes where we would need to beef up our capabilities vis-a-vis Pakistan and, of course, China, because, Akshita, at the end of the day, we are looking at a two-front situation, and I think the Indian armed forces have to be extremely mindful of the fact that you have a northern adversary as well. So you will be looking at procurements across the board that could look at both China and Pakistan.
There's been a lot of talk about made in India, about Atmanirbhar defense as well. But Gaurav, if you stack it up to a made in India versus a made in China, or for that matter, a made in Turkey, how does India really perform then as far as our defense goes, as far as our arms that are being produced locally go?
So far, India has done exceptionally well. Do keep in mind, since 2020, we were having a standoff with China post-Galwan, and a lot of stocking up had already happened post-Galwan. And all of that, was very effectively used. So India has, touchwood, surplus stocks for now, but they must be replenished very quickly and more. But, as Sandeep was pointing out, the BrahMos armed on a Su-30 MKI, that's an absolute game changer. Neither China nor Pakistan have anything to counter that. The Chinese HQ-9 air defense systems, they were found to be wanting. Again, for a very long time, India was stocking up on loiter ammunition. It was, stocking up on kamikaze drones. That's when these drones, they can loiter for about 6 to 8 hours. They can identify the target, and all the information is pre-fed in their system. They keep relaying that information back to base, but they are remotely piloted. The moment they see the target, they go crash into the target and destroy it.
And those were India made too.
And some of them are made in India. We need better quality made in India. Some of these are made in Israel. But we need much, much bigger numbers, of these. Some of them are now being made in India. The big advantage is it can loiter in enemy territory for 6 to 8 hours and can destroy their air defense or their vital assets and vital points. And that, with the Chinese systems, they were taken down, especially their air defense system, whether it was near Lahore or near the Malir Canton in Karachi. That's a disaster for Pakistan and for China. Also, the air-to-air missiles, the PL-15s, Indian air-to-air missiles or Indian missiles have done better than the Chinese. So overall, if you were to look at this picture, the fact that, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi put it on the 10th of May, after India's punitive strikes across multiple air bases and radar stations, Pakistan sought a ceasefire, is an indication that our weapons, our systems, our training, our tactics was head and shoulders above Pakistan, backed by China and Turkey.
No, very, very true. I think the success of Operation Sidnoor really showed that we're much, much ahead of Pakistan. But having said that, Sandeep, when you look really retrospectively at Operation Sidnoor and all that played out then, clearly, yes, India was in a very good position. But just analyzing it, do you think that there's one possible area where you think, we need to procure more arms? Is it in defense, offense? It could be, of course, in any front that you think that this is something that India should be looking out more for.
Well, Akshita, you had a very interesting platform just flashing on screen there. It's the High Altitude Pseudo Satellite, or the HAPS. Now, that is one critical capability that India has tested over the last couple of months, but we haven't been able to induct them in as much quantity as we should have inducted, because that is a game-changing technology, and this is to the credit of the Indian Air Force that has realized the utility of this platform. It is a very long-range, high-altitude drone, which basically is solar-powered, which means that it basically loiters at a very high altitude, above 10, 12 kilometers. It's virtually undetectable. It's packed with sensors, and it can fly like a satellite, but in low Earth orbit. So it is capabilities like this we really need to enhance. What you really need to do is to basically make that sensor shooter link materialize. The fact is that we have a lot of weapons, but we don't have eyes on target of the kind that the HAPS, the HAPS provides. So we need to invest more in these kind of surveillance platforms that can give you 24/7, 365 coverage of all the areas inside of Pakistan, because if you can see all those areas which from where not just terrorists can be launched, but also strikes that the Pakistanis could launch against you can be detected even before they take off. So what we have really shown with Operation Sidnoor is that Pakistan is really a shallow country. The fact is that they don't have strategic depth. We are able to see deep inside Pakistan just by being airborne, going up to several kilometers. We can look deep inside. We can see their air bases, their airfields. We are able to precisely target something as small as a trailer that launches drones, that a trailer from where drone operators can fly drones into India. We are able to target those kind of precision targets. Now, this is the capability we really need to build up on. We need to get more eyes on target and close that sensor shooter link, and also, of course, beef up what is called C4ISR, this command control, communications, information and reconnaissance. All of this thing. This is not the glamorous stuff that you have, like the missiles and all that, which we have in quantities, but this is something, as Gaurav will testify, this is a capability that we have been lacking since Kargil of 1999, when we could not see deep into enemy territory. Therefore, we could not pick up the signs of them preparing to launch an attack or grab territory like they tried to do in 1999.
Something like the HAPS that you're referring to, Sandeep, was that used in Operation Sidnoor?
I don't believe it was. We didn't have them in the numbers.
Okay.
We should have had, dozens of them by now. But it's a slow process. I think it's the armed forces are also justified because they want to ensure that they get the best system. That they put it through a number of trials. And unfortunately, sometimes these trials take several years. And as Gaurav was saying, that these are systems that have already been tested. Indigenous solutions. These are Indian solutions for Indian wars. And if they've been found to be fit for Indian conditions, they should be inducted as soon as possible. Because now, as the Operation Sidnoor, it's an ongoing operation. There is no point in waiting any longer. These are, capabilities, equipments that we needed. If not day before yesterday, then we certainly needed it yesterday. So these should be inducted on priority, given the fact that they are majority of them are indigenous solutions made by Indian companies. Some are imported and assembled here, but they are all Indian solutions.
Interesting. So Desi solutions right at our fingertips, which we then need to kick off. I'll call that Sandeep's wish list. What's Gaurav's wish list? Gaurav, what do you think is something that you believe we need to kind of work on?
So low Earth orbit satellites is something that we desperately need. We need battlefield transparency and we need more AWACS, airborne early warning command and control system. We need more mid-air refuelers so that even when you have lesser number of fighter jets, which unfortunately we do, our aircraft are able to take off from anywhere with more weapons and less fuel. Fuel mid-air, your battlefield is transparent with your low Earth orbiting satellites and with the HAPS, as Sandeep was pointing out. We've tested some of these balloons at 17 kilometers altitude. That's in stratosphere. So they are in stratosphere. They can look deep inside enemy territory. Do keep in mind that there are two hostile countries that we are dealing with. One is China, the other is Pakistan. But then there is one aspect. China too would have realized the offensive capabilities of the Indian armed forces, and they would have seen that this is one setup, with the Narendra Modi government, that they're not scared of taking offensive action, and that is why it would deter any other country from interfering in India's affairs, in a way, because there would be consequences for them. So we need to build more BrahMos missiles. We need to get from wherever we can fighter jet engines that we need fighter jet engines. We should make our fighter jets in India. They may not be the best in the world, but let's start making our own fighter jets. Let's get numbers. You can keep improving them. That is what the Air Force intends to do. The future of warfare to a very large extent will be the employment of air power. We've seen that after Balakot, after Pulwama, when Air Force was used in Balakot, and we've seen them now. You'll also need a lot of manned, unmanned tandem operations. So you'll need a lot of unmanned combat aerial vehicles flying with your fighter jets. All of that is what we need to invest in as much as possible in making India stuff. Our bureaucracy must shape up and provide as quickly as possible. Sometimes just clearing a weapon or a system could take up to 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. We in our country cannot afford that right now. In numbers, in smaller numbers, we need everything as of day before yesterday, given the fact that you have Pakistan that's acquiring, and Pakistan will only be armed by China and Turkey to checkmate India. Turkey is playing an evil game in the sense that Turkey wants to be seen as this evolved Islamic country, and Erdogan sees himself as the new caliph of the Ottoman Empire. So he wants Saudi Arabia's influence to go down, and Pakistan, Malaysia and Turkey to be the new faces of Islam. So that is why he will continue to arm Pakistan. China does not want India to grow, so China will continue to arm Pakistan. We'll have to pay for everything. Pakistan will just beg for weapons to fight. They're a gun for hire. We are fighting for honor. So there's a big difference. We need everything and quickly and now.
Both you, Gaurav and Sandeep, have been reiterating the importance of Make in India. But India also does procure a lot from our allies, from other countries. So if I were just to compare the two, Gaurav, I'll put this across to you first. Pakistan, of course, has a China and Turkey on their side. Who would you deem as India's China and Turkey when it comes to our defense, our arms procurement?
We have to be Atmanirbhar, because we are a country that has self-respect. And in the long run, look, in 1998, when India did the Pokhran tests, even our best friends refused to give us military hardware, and a lot of them, and our entire Sea King and Sea Harrier fleet was grounded. We couldn't get spares for a lot of other military hardware. So whether it was wingspan extension or airframe extension or engine extension, that was given to our equipment. So the West, they will twist your tail. So you have to go with as much make in India as you can. Countries like Israel are friendly. Countries like Russia are friendly. It may not be grade 1 per se. France has been a great friend, but even with Rafales, there's some stuff that we require, and we require it as of now. Whoever gives us fighter jet engine technology, perhaps in my view, would be the country we should move forward with.
Just look at those numbers on our screens right now, Sandeep, and I'll bring you in on this. This is Pakistan's defense partners. 2018 to 2022, 81% came from China, 4% from Turkey. So there's, of course, an overwhelming dependence, as expected, on Pakistan's part, on China, which was something that's, not surprising. But when you look at that number of 81%, do you think, as far as India goes, that 81% ideally should be make in India? What is that statistically like right now for India?
Well, absolutely. There is no option, as Gaurav was saying, that there is no option but to go indigenous. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not just a slogan. It is actually a statement for our survival as as an independent country, where you will not have a lot of countries coming to our assistance. And this is something that we have seen time after time. Right from the Pokhran tests of 1998, there will be statements of support, but at the end of the day, we are on our own, and this is what our political and military leadership very well know. And that is the reason why India has struck its own path and built its nuclear weapons program. It's because we are on our own. And therefore, if we can build the nuclear weapons that we did, and we have the strategic missile delivery platforms that to deliver those warheads, and all of these are completely indigenous. We built these weapons under great international pressure, and the fact that we were in technology denial regimes, despite that we managed to do all of this. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are from China and from North Korea. They're missiles and nuclear weapons. We had to do this all by ourselves. Therefore, it's all the more important now that when we're looking at building our conventional weapons capabilities, beefing up our conventional weapons capabilities, we need to push an indigenous path. Of course, there will be countries like Israel, there will be countries like Russia, and of course, France that will chip in. But these capabilities should only be the tip of the spear. They should never form the whole spear. The rest of it, like you said, I see 80% of indigenous capability being the stated goal, and eventually 100%. But realistically, I think we should be looking at something like 60 to 80% indigenous weapon systems. And also, if I can quickly add, the thing that we should really be looking for is that indigenous rocket force. This is something that the government has been pushing, the Defense Ministry has been talking about, the armed forces have been proposing this, that you're looking at harnessing all of our capabilities for launching precision long-range fires, starting from the BrahMos missile, the Pinaka missile and the Pinaka rockets, the BrahMos missile, the conventional versions of missiles like the Pralay and the Prahar, and of course the hypersonic missile that's about 1500 kilometers. All of these need to be brought under a rocket force. And I believe, like, as Gaurav was saying, we need those jet engines, we need fighter jets, but these are long-term acquisitions. It takes 10, 15 years to build your own jet engine. While we are waiting for those jet engines to arrive, solutions like the rocket force, which knit together all of our offensive long-range capabilities, need to be developed very quickly. Missiles and rockets is a capability that India is more or less entirely indigenous, self-sufficient. We don't need to import anything from any other country. We have the best.
Exporting, actually.
We are actually exporting it, exactly. We have these capabilities. Let's build on our strengths, because this is the kind of capability with a rocket force that you can, use it to provide conventional deterrence against not just Pakistan, but China as well. So if you have a problem with your numbers of fighter jets, you just have a squadron strength of just over 30 squadrons, whereas your requirement is much more. In the short term, you can bridge the gap with capabilities like this, the rocket force, hypersonic missiles, drones.
You know, coming for 1 minute on that point that Sandeep made, like our armed forces are on the ball. I want our defense production units to be absolutely on the ball with zero error. We have to have that zero error syndrome, because there have been instances where we've lost our fighter planes or fighter pilots to some problems that may have been in maintenance of our fighter jets. Now that we just cannot afford. We just cannot afford to have any explosion in the breach when it comes to our ammunition. So we need to improve our metallurgy. We have to be zero error on everything that we move forward on national defense and accountability. That is where you cannot afford to have any unions coming together and groups going to government and government backing. All of that is a strict no-no. We need more of the private sector coming in defense hardware, and the government backing that private sector in defense hardware. All of that is required for us to be really Atmanirbhar, because we shouldn't just be making for ourselves. We should be arming our friends across the world. You know, if Turkey is arming up Pakistan, we anyway have a better plan of, for example, our Akash missiles or our Swati radars or other radars that Armenia wants to buy. Other countries across the world, including Philippines and Indonesia, are looking at BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. So we need to export a lot more defense hardware, and with each improvement, we become world-class, because one, we make it cheaper, we make it better. We need to improve our metallurgy, is what experts tell us.
You know, synergy all around essentially is what we're focusing on. Pakistan could be going out to their allies, Turkey, China, because they really can't focus on making Pakistan right now, which would be a joke, honestly. But that's why looking to Turkey and China, we can look within. Look, we've reached a lot of milestones in the last few weeks. You look at the success of Operation Sidnoor and how our forces, given a free hand, showed what they're capable of. You look at the fact that we're now the 4th largest economy in the world. All of that puts us in a position where we can be completely self-reliant, where we can turn completely indigenous and focus on make in India. So while Pakistan can go about with the shopping spree that they're on, clearly in a panic, India, going by what Gaurav and Sandeep have told us, needs to focus on looking within, speed up our own process of Atmanirbhar defense. Thank you very much, Sandeep and Gaurav, for joining us in this edition of NewsTrack, and of course enlightening us on where perhaps India should be moving forward, whether Pakistan going on the shopping spree is actually a problem, a worry, a concern for India or not. We hope we've answered all of your questions. Thanks very much for tuning into this edition of NewsTrack. Good night.